RuneScape 3's first ever seasonal league is dropping this autumn, and I think it's about time we start diving into each of these separate regions in RuneScape 3 to get a better understanding of what exactly we're working with here, because as you're gonna see today in just covering the Misthalin region, there are tons of differences between RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape. For all intensive purposes, RuneScape 3 is a completely different game, and hopefully by the end of this series of covering every region here, we're gonna walk away with a good enough baseline understanding for when we put together our final step-by-step game plan for this league. Like I said, today we're gonna be jumping into Misthalin, so let's go ahead and get started, because back in the day, every RuneScape journey started right here in Lumbridge. However, nowadays, RuneScape 3 will plop you smack dab in the middle of the Taverly with tons of early game skilling activities for you to partake in. Unfortunately, we don't have an official word on the league's starting point yet, so we're just going to go ahead and assume it will follow the old school RuneScape League playbook, starting us off inside of Lumbridge with the Misthalin and Karamja regions auto-unlock. When it comes to the Taverly, that's technically in Asgarnia, which just throws a wrench into the whole region unlock thing. So again, for simplicity and nostalgia's sake, we're going to go ahead and start off right here in Lumbridge. As you can see off in the distance of this clip, there are a couple of things that your typical old school RuneScape player might not recognize. The first of which being this prayer nexus minigame jutting out of the ground right here. This is an absolute game changer for early prayer training. It has 0 requirements, and it is for sure going to be a heavily hit spot on day 1 of leagues. Essentially, all you're going to need to do is collect a corrupted sack from this lady right here, and then you're going to collect corruption from the center of the nexus. After you have a chunk of corruption, you're going to go ahead and take it over to one of these 4 altars and put it into a bowl. I believe that there are 4 bowls on each of these altars, and a stream of water is going to flow from the altar, and the color of the stream is going to be dependent on which bowl has purified the most corruption. This is essentially the gist of what this activity is here, but there is a second phase that can happen if the players manage to get all 4 of the altars to have a different color flow into the center for long enough. Then they will summon a monster that can be taken out just by clicking on it, and doing this will give you a reward of grotesque bones that will give you up to 1,294 extra prayer experience. However, that second whole phase isn't even really necessary, but the easy early game prayer experience that you can get from this nexus is a must. There is a bit of a kicker to this though, because you can only gain 37,000 prayer experience from this thing, after which you won't be able to interact with it. And one of 2 things could happen here. With the league's bonus, that 37,000 prayer experience could get multiplied by 5 and be 185,000 prayer experience, or more likely the experience that you get from this will be multiplied by 5 or whatever, and you'll just get to that 37,000 experience cap a whole lot faster. So it might not necessarily boost you right up to level 43 prayer, but it is going to be an insanely easy way to jumpstart your prayer levels. The next big thing that you could see in the background here was the Shattered Worlds minigame. This is a combat minigame that is going to both equip you with gear and feed you, which is wild. So there's essentially 0 requirements for this as well. It's worth noting that you can take what you are wearing into the Shattered Worlds, but considering that we are all going to be starting off fresh during leagues, this equip and feed me option might be absolutely huge for some early game combat training. Early-ish anyways, because this minigame is geared toward players with combat level 40 or higher. But again, like I said, with this league's experience rates, that should be absolutely no problem to obtain. Plus the easy prayer that you get from the Nexus, so you could still easily rush to this relatively early and perhaps use it to level up combat quickly and without needing any gear. When it comes to the mechanics of this minigame though, essentially you're just going to be going through different maps with different tasks, like slay X amount of monsters, clear X amount of the map, and then once you complete the task, you'll be able to move into the next map. There are mutators that you have to choose from at the start of each match, and also periodically throughout the match, which can either be positive or negative. For example, one of the mutators will make enemies bleed anima currency when damaged, while another will make it to where Evil Bob will hunt you down, draining your summoning points, then your prayer points, and then finally your run energy. There are also some key upgrades that come from this minigame, such as the Salt the Wound ability and the Bladed Dive ability, so it's not only the combat experience you're looking to get out of these. However, each of these new abilities require 63 million anima to unlock, but again, with these leagues, boosted rates should be easy enough to get, especially considering the more regions that you unlock, the higher the boosted rates go. And then another big change to this Misthalin region compared to old school RuneScape is the Wizard's Tower. More importantly, the rune crafting minigame that is there called RuneSpan. In the main game, this is an insanely efficient way to train rune crafting, so with leagues boosts, this will for sure be an area that you are visiting. When it comes to the mechanics, it's pretty straightforward here with different levels for you to train your rune crafting on depending on what your level is. There's a little bit of nuance to the game other than that, but it's pretty straightforward, like I said. And those are just the three big differences down here in the South Misthalin region, but there are also a few small ones that are worth mentioning. For example, this divination training spot right here near Draenor is where you're going to be training up divination to start, which is actually a skill required to unlock invention. Also, I want to point out that there are thieving stalls right here in Lumbridge. So starting at level 5 thieving, you can actually start training on these stalls, even right here in Lumbridge. And then finally, there are these rough stone blocks scattered around the map. One of them is right across the river of Lumbridge. And these are a bit of a weekly minigame where you help this guy sculpt this thing into a statue. You're going to gain experience dependent on what statue you picked. I think it's Prayer, Construction, or Slayer or something like that. I'm also not entirely sure if this whole stone block thing is locked behind a quest or not, but I think it's worth pointing out that these are definitely something you're going to want to be taking a look at. But let's go ahead and move north a little bit into Varrock and talk about what's different up here. Starting off with May, the quest reward lady. This lady is really important. Basically, the higher quest points that you have, the more rewards that you can get from her. I believe it's like from experience lamps to clue scroll caskets. This lady is definitely somebody you're going to want to check in on every so often, maybe even right at the start of leagues if there is a significant amount of quests that are auto unlocked. Up next though, we have the archaeology area, and this is your main area of operation for archaeology. It's going to be where you unlock most of your major upgrades and also where you process sand and refine artifacts. However, when it comes to archaeology though, the first dig site is actually located in Al-Kharid, which might make it to where you need to unlock the desert in order to even train archaeology. Skills like archaeology are totally up in the air right now as to how exactly they're going to end up working in leagues. Hopefully we get some more solid information soon about things like this so we can really dial in our game plan. But this is really all I wanted to cover for this Misthalin region. Let me know down in the comments if there are any big things that I missed. It's been a while since I've played RuneScape 3, so I'm doing a bit of catch up myself here. But that's all I wanted to break down today. I hope you all have an amazing day. I'm out.